Drought continues to grow throughout California, plus expanding fire risk and Sierra storms. We're covering it all in our extended forecast. I'm ABC 10 Chief Meteorologist Monica Woods with a look at our weather impact forecast moving into our weekend outlook as well. Taking a look at the new drought monitor that came out. This was what things looked like last week at this time. And you can see most of the dryness categories were going to be south of Sacramento through the Central Valley and through Southern California. Drought severity index and coverage at about 132. Now, fast forward just a week later, and there's a little change in the drought monitor. You may have noticed this little yellow popping up here on the northwest corner of California, indicating abnormally dry conditions. This was a little bit of I wouldn't say a shock, but I would say that it was unexpected given how wet the northwest corner of California has been. And it also showcases how just a little bit of dryness and heat can quickly start to dry things out. You can see how the soil moisture has changed within about a month. Now, we were seeing a lot of the fuels starting to dry throughout the central part of this state, a lot of the soil moisture gone as we started to deal with just day after day less and less rain, as well as more and more heat. Now we are into a category where we're starting to see that expand from the northwest corner of California southward along the coast to about the central coast area. And again, inland areas, and also a little bit of dryness moving up the hill through the Sierra foothills and the mountains. And that signals to us, okay, now we're starting to have to pay more attention to the potential of more wildland fires. No more of those grassy, low-level fuels and fires that are burning throughout the valley. Now we start to really focus our attention into the higher elevations. And you can see how that is shifting as well. As far as the moderate to dry categories, it is starting to expand in parts of Northern California. And again, we had really decent wetting rain throughout our wet season, but just a little bit of heat, a little bit of dry winds, and it gets things going pretty quickly. So as far as what we're looking at for the weekend outlook, the biggest risk, and it's more in the moderate to dry category, will be in extreme Northern California, surrounding foothills and parts of the lower mountains as well. Drought outlook, just looking ahead to what we're expecting over the next month or so. Drought development possible throughout parts of the Central Valley, and again, in parts of the central and southern Sierra. With that kind of weather condition, we look at more reliance on surface water deliveries as well as groundwater as we dig into our drier part of the year. Certainly this is going to be a large agriculture area that will rely on more surface water deliveries than, say, the northern part of the state, which has pretty ample storage right now. In fact, we'll take a look at some of that in just a moment. Statewide precipitation, this is really what helps to play out the bigger picture, because drought in California is so multi-layered. It's not just how much rain did we get versus the absence of rain. It's water supply, both on surface, groundwater, as well as the environmental impacts, the agricultural impacts. So the folks at the U.S. Drought Monitor doing a lot of work behind the scenes to just dig into the deeper picture here. This is why I was saying it's a bit of not a surprise, but just an eye-opener how quickly things can dry out, because we had almost 9 inches above average for Eureka. Redding with about 4 3/10 of an inch above average for our rainfall. Everywhere else was abnormally dry, and really the drought conditions continue throughout Southern California, becoming a bit more problematic the deeper south we head. It's been 67 days since Sacramento Executive has seen over 1/10 of an inch of rain. We have to go back all the way to March 30th, where we had over 1/10 of an inch of rain. Since then, it has been dry, predictable. This is our dry season after all. So now we quickly turn our attention to growing fire risk. We keep these weather playlists going with extended forecast explainers, weather and climate specials on ABC 10 Plus. Make sure to download it wherever you stream for free on TV. Major reservoir supplies. This always gets some big headlines because of the need for the surface water heading into the dry season. And as of today, these are the latest numbers. Oroville reaching 100% capacity. That is the state's second largest reservoir. The largest is Shasta, 91% capacity. That is it, holding a lot of water, over 100% of average for most of our reservoirs. Folsom, a little bit smaller. We like to highlight that because that feeds a large metropolitan area throughout Sacramento. As we head into the Central Valley, New Melones, Don Pedro, San Luis, all also looking very good. Now, San Luis, you might notice, so that looks quite a bit lower than some of these other reservoirs. That's an stream pumped water supply station where that feeds the California aqueduct. So everything kind of flowing in a network of canals as well as streams that take it into different parts of the state and eventually moving into the drier southern part of the state. Now, as far as our water supply, we are entering into the time where we see those supplies going down. We've already reached that peak for many of our reservoirs. Here's a look at the graph, and the average is going to be in this light blue shaded area here. The blue indicates where we are right now. Shasta's capacity is over 4.5 million acre feet. We got awfully close to that, and now we're starting to see some of those supplies being needed, sent down into Southern California. So we'll see in a very formulaic fashion those numbers starting to go down and the water levels going down as well. Same for Oroville, as I mentioned, 100% capacity. Now, not actually overflowing its banks. They just tried to get it as high as they actually could. They've done a lot of reinforcements. You can see kind of the shaded picture behind me. We had the auxiliary spillway really getting enforced and protecting the downstream communities. So some nice flexibility there for Lake Oroville, getting up to over 3.4 million acre feet right now. Gradually, we'll start to see those numbers go down as well. And again, Folsom, much smaller lake, 977,000 acre feet, and currently just a little bit over 900,000 acre feet, starting to come down just a little bit. Without the snowmelt filling those reservoirs, basically, we're going to be status quo, or we'll see those numbers go down. So again, we get into that peak snowmelt period coming in to the spring season. Once that snowmelt peak is done, things will start to fall steadily throughout the course of the summer months. Our average precipitation, not much coming in here. Once we get into June, we're less than 1/4 of an inch, and we're just kind of knocking on the door of July, our driest month of the year. Conversely, we see the temperatures go up. So we're in that point of the year where we see less in the way of precipitation, more in the way of heat, and several factors that play into that, not only with drought conditions, but also fire danger that will continue to grow. So preventing a spark, a couple of key factors and reminders here: metal blades plus rocks equals fire. So mow lawns, not dry grass or weeds. We've time and time again had to cover stories of those fast moving low level fires due to those grass fires. Properly dispose of cigarettes and matches, and watch for dragging vehicle parts. This is a big time of year to do camping and also RVing across the state, boats as well, towing all sorts of things behind our vehicles. Just make sure all those parts are secure. In terms of our go bag, we always keep those 5 P's in mind: people, pets, papers, prescriptions, and photos. Have it ready to go, because you never know when that evacuation warning is going to come, and it could be at night as well. Make sure everything's charged up when we have a higher fire level event where critical fire weather is developing. One of those factors that can come into play is winds, but it depends on the direction of the wind. It's been pretty favorable throughout the course of our late week forecast, with an onshore flow that tends to favor higher humidity, also cooler temperatures, and it will keep the fire danger a little bit lower. But any kind of wind can help to accelerate a growing fire. So even though the direction may be favorable, it can still help to spread a fire. Heading into our Friday forecast, those winds back off ever so slightly, kind of changing the trend here from the cooler conditions for our late week forecast into the weekend, where we start to draw in about 5 to almost 10 degrees above average for our temperatures. Our temperature trend has been all over the place lately. We hit that high of 102 last weekend and then dropped to 85 degrees. That's how much a delta breeze can help nature's air conditioning, getting us back to near average temperatures. We kind of saw that fluctuate throughout the course of the week, now starting to taper off. We had a pretty pleasant Thursday, but the heat risk will expand for our Friday and weekend outlook, back to that moderate range throughout much of the valley. So people who are sensitive to heat certainly going to be feeling the impacts. Still seeing the presence of just a hint of an onshore flow, and that is what keeps us below 100, despite the fact we're under this big ridge of high pressure. One of the areas that people really like to go this time of year, is our beautiful waterways, and that includes the rivers. But we're still in kind of that bubble area where we're dealing with the snow melt and still the runoff and releases coming from reservoirs. That's going to be very, very cold water. Keep that in mind. Rivers are still running fast, cold and high, and there can be hidden dangers below that surface as well. Sacramento River at Sacramento, 70 degrees. American River, though, below Folsom down to 56. San Joaquin at Stockton, 76 degrees. That's much farther from snowmelt and reservoir releases. Tuolumne at LaGrange, 54 degrees. Sierra and Foothill waters are going to be between about 50, 60 degrees. Still quite cold in Lake Tahoe at 64 degrees. That will continue to come up as well. All of this is, you look at the threshold between 50 and 70 degrees, begin to lose control of your muscles, as well as it making it difficult to breathe. So even if you're doing some recreation, say on a kayak, a paddleboard, or just a little raft, if you fall over, it's going to take your breath away just for a moment. Just stay calm and always wear a life vest. We have heard from first responders, and they say first and foremost, always have that life jacket on and keep the kids close by and an eye on them if you're playing around the river. Avoid alcohol. And know those cold water impacts with the breathing. Strong currents make for tough rescues. So make it as easy as possible. If you do happen to slip into the water, have that life vest on and know your way out and how to get to the side. Satellite and radar, not much going on overhead in terms of central California, but we continue to monitor the presence of some isolated thunderstorms as we have a little low just kind of migrating along the coast. So periodically into our Friday, Saturday, and Sunday forecast, we'll still have a tinge of instability in the afternoon forecast, enough to kind of fire off some of those thunderstorms throughout the Sierra Spine. But again, that high pressure ridge is what keeps us high and dry. For the valley, that means sinking warming air and warming temperatures. Friday, we still have the risk of thunderstorms expanding throughout the Sierra. By Saturday, it actually moves in through parts of Northern California up towards Redding in the northern Sacramento Valley, all the way through the Sierra and then southward again through the southern Sierra. A look at some lightning safety tips. I know recreation is really something we enjoy in Northern California this time of year, especially for the higher elevations where it can be just a little bit cooler than the hot valley. Avoiding beach and picnic shelters can certainly be a good thing to keep in mind with lightning safety. Avoid the top of hills and open fields, and that means getting those hikes in earlier in the day. Stay away from water. Thunder roars, go indoors. Don't be by the water as a conductor there, and avoid trees or tall objects as well. Don't want to try to seek shelter in those areas. Now, I did want to point this out. We have a likely cooler setup heading our way for the middle of June, likely wetter, slightly favoring the Pacific Northwest through extreme Northern California. And we've got a lot to count down here. 10 days until Father's Day. It's that time of year. It just feels like every week we get another either holiday or Remembrance Day. 14 days away from Juneteenth, 15 days away from the summer solstice, and 29 away from the 4th of July. So we've got a lot to look forward to here for both holidays and Remembrance Days. Highs in the 70s for the Sierra tomorrow. We get into the 80s and lower 90s for the foothills. Along the coast, highs are going to be reaching the 60s, and that's just kind of showcasing the cooler air that we periodically are able to pull in throughout the valley with those beautiful breezes coming in from the Pacific. We're in the 80s and 90s throughout much of the Coastal Valley area through the Central Valley. Morning lows are in the 50s. And again, we're so fortunate that we get those lows that are so crisp and cool. We can open up the windows in the morning, kind of try to cool our environment down as much as possible. Our 5-day regional forecast, a much warmer outlook for the weekend. After hitting highs in the 70s, we'll be in the 80s and 90s throughout much of the foothills, and then 60s and pretty consistent conditions along the coast. A look at our extended forecast. We've got highs in the low to mid 90s straight through the weekend outlook into early next week. But by the time we dig deeper into the forecast, we're looking at highs dropping back into the 80s.